All right, good morning, Sacramento. It's going to be a great day. We're so glad you're here. Let's go ahead and start finding our seats. We have a wonderful conference today for you. We've got so many wonderful speakers and partners who are really heavily involved in the VOADs and up and down the state. And we've got so many wonderful partners in the room here today. This is our second conference this week. We did one in San Jose, and I know the excitement level, with the engagement level there was really good, but it's going to be even better here in Sacramento because Sacramento, we love you guys so much here. It's also where the headquarters for Cal OES is, who's one of our dear partners, and so we're glad to see a lot of them in the room today. So again, my name's Kevin Cox. I'm with Hope Crisis Response Network, but I'm also the chair of the NorCal and the State of California VOAD. So if you have any VOAD questions, anything you want to talk about, I'm here for you. Any of our executive committee, which you'll meet throughout the day, is available to you as well. I want to also, just so glad that you're here, but we also have a very special guest with us today, and you'll get to meet her a little bit later. But for those of you that don't know her, how many of you, just out of curiosity, have your own baseball card? Minnie's here, and she has her own baseball card. So make sure you grab one of Minnie's cards. Minnie works with the Hope Animal, what is it, Assisted Network. We have worked together with Lee many times, and Minnie is the talk of the events. Minnie is so sweet. So get a chance to go over and meet with her. There's a couple things here. We want to let you know we are going to be using Mentimeters throughout the day. You'll see those when they come up on the screen. And also on your table, you're going to see a bingo card. And the bingo card, you're going to get a little more instruction on that in just a little bit. You'll have a QR code to the Mentimeters. You're going to have a Google form doc that you can scan. And what we're going to encourage you to do with the Google form is to ask questions that are about, because we found that sometimes people are very hesitant to want to volunteer, I don't want to speak in front of everybody. So you can actually ask your question without having to stand up. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, and if we don't answer your question today, we will make sure that question is answered for you at some point throughout this week. The other thing, we have Wi-Fi on the table as well. So if you want to connect to the Wi-Fi on your phones, that's great. The biggest question of the day, where's the bathrooms? They are out the door on this far side here and down the hallway. So if you're like me and you drink a lot of coffee or tea in the morning and you got to get up, you got to go. So don't worry about getting up in the middle of one of the presentations. Let's see here. You've recognized what this is. You know what this is. But does anybody know what AFK is? Anyone in this room? You get a prize if you know it. Oh, this is the acronym Fine Kettle. So throughout the day, anytime someone uses an acronym, we want you to ring the bell on the table, and they have to put $1 in the kettle. This is for all the speakers and everybody else. So my wife didn't have much confidence in me, so she gave me a fistful of ones to make sure that we were covered. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put those over here. And that way, it's hard to invite a speaker and then tell them they got to pay to be here. So we'll put them and get these taken care of. And yeah, I don't want to talk about it. But what's really good is also on your table, and Adriana very kindly reminded me, on the back of your conference information, there are a list of acronyms on there. So you can kind of use that, and we want you to know that all of the money that the acronyms go to will go to the Salvation Army today and for their Christmas. And I want to encourage you all, if you feel like at the end of the day there's something that you would like to help out with the Salvation Army, don't be shy. Drop $1 or $2 in if you want. I'd like to have our host come forward at this time. This is Major Brakenbury. He is Salvation Army is very near and dear to my heart, and it's a very uh, wonderful organization, and they are our host today. And so, Major, I'm going to have you come up and say a few words for us, if you will. Thanks for joining us.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Salvation Army Divisional Headquarters. This is where the magic happens, if you will. We're responsible for the Salvation Army's programs and services across Northern California and Nevada, many of the areas that you help to serve alongside of us as well. So I first want to say thank you to each and every one of you for what you do in our communities, for what you do for the state, and for your efforts in helping to meet the needs of those who are going through a disaster. The Salvation Army has been doing disaster work for a good number of years. The very first hurricane that hit Galveston, Texas, is the first opportunity the Salvation Army had to participate in disaster relief. And we are there to help those individuals who are going through a disaster, as well as first responders, and meeting their needs as well. And having served in a couple of major disasters myself, the San Francisco earthquake, Columbine, and a number of fires here in California and in Alaska, I can tell you that it's strange to say, but it's an incredible opportunity and an incredible ministry that we have to be able to meet people and to help them cope and deal with life during a disaster, and to be able to provide a sense of hope that there is a better tomorrow. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for being here today. I hope today is productive for you, and one that you will come away encouraged in what you are doing and being able to move forward. Hopefully we won't have to use our services, but it's good to have this type of setting for training and for networking and just having an opportunity to meet together. So again, thank you for what you do. Thank you for supporting us. Please use acronyms all day long. We need to fill this pot. No, seriously, your support of the Salvation Army, whether it's through disaster services or throughout the year, we are greatly appreciative of that. It helps us to be able to help more people. We save money with volunteers. We saved about $5.5 million last year through volunteer efforts for what we do throughout our communities. So thank you for supporting us in that way. Would you allow me to pray for you today? Father God, we are grateful for this day. We are grateful, Father, for all of the different people that are here in this building, and for what they mean to you and for what they mean to the communities that we serve. Father, I thank you for their tireless efforts that help us to bring hope to individuals when they are facing a crisis. Father, may this day be an opportunity for learning, for networking, for just partnerships and a better understanding of what we do and why we do it. We invite your presence here. Be with each and every person. We thank you for the traveling mercies that you've given. We would pray that as we leave this afternoon. Guide and direct, for we ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you all. Have a great day.
Appreciate that. Well, thank you. Let's give you kind of an idea of our day. First off, we'd like to just recognize our sponsors. We are so fortunate to have Cal VOAD, United Way, and Listos. They are sponsoring the conference. I was wishing Taylor Swift, I don't even know Taylor Swift's song. We're so glad to have them. You'll get to meet them a little bit later today as well. And moving on, we've got, the type is so small I can't read it. We'd like to thank our hosts at the Salvation Army today too. Major and Amy Mefford back here is responsible for all the good work that's done here. We're so happy to have them as a partner, and plus she's a part of our executive board, and you'll get a chance to meet some of those in just a moment here. Again, I'd like to invite up Matt Plotkin, one of our hosts. Matt, there he is. This is Matt Plotkin. This is what I refer to as a rising superstar in the disaster world. Matt, welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Matt Plotkin with United Way of Northern California. I'm the Director of Equity and Advocacy, and I also oversee our disaster services for our 9-county region, which is basically the size of Tennessee. And I think many of you can understand and appreciate what it is to work in the state of California. Most of us are regional as opposed to hyper-local. And to figure out how we do what we do with the resources available to us, we have to coordinate, we have to collaborate, we have to communicate and cooperate. And not only am I with United Way, I'm also the vice chair of the Butte Glen VOAD, which did not exist on November 8th, 2018, when the campfire exploded upon Butte County and devastated the town of Paradise, as well as surrounding communities like Magalia and Polga and a few others. And on that day, I had no idea about acronyms that I would now understand and know and contribute to in some way. And it was a learning adventure for sure. And I would call out to you and lift up, if you do not have a VOAD in your community, in your county, do what you can to make sure that that stands up and before the disaster arrives to your county and your community, to try to figure out how to stand up a long-term recovery group as the disaster is still unfolding was words actually cannot describe what that was. But thankfully we had many people who were willing to contribute, and some of those folks are in the room, and I'm grateful to see their faces. And I got to meet this guy a few days into the whole process. All that said is I'm thrilled to have us here together today at this location, and Monday was wonderful. Sue Chi did a wonderful job of hosting us in San Jose, and then I'm looking forward to Friday being up in Redding, where we get to take this traveling band again. And before I hand over the mic, and I think it was Zach who said the person with the microphone has the power, so I still have it. Sorry if I'm taking us off course, but I want to check in with all of you and make sure that you have implemented or are aware of the 5 Listos steps. So I'm going to cover those with you all. And so number 1, get alerts to know what to do. If you do not have Code Red or something similar, find Theresa in the back there, and she'll help you get connected to Code Red or the state Shake app as well. Number 2, make a plan to protect your people. Number 3, pack a go bag with things you need. You'll be surprised what you might need, but one of those could be prescription medication. Number 4, build a stay box when you can't leave. And number 5, help friends and neighbors get ready. I think all of us can contribute in one way or another, or fulfill any of these 5 steps. If you have not, and all of us are people who are keenly aware of disasters that impact our communities, let's pretend we're on the airplane, we put the mask on first, right? If we're not putting on the mask first, we're not able to help others. So let's make sure we're following these 5 steps and being prepared ourselves as individuals before we go out and do the help of others. Thanks, Kevin. And I'll take these 2 things away.
There you go. Appreciate that, Matt. Thank you so much. And it's so important to be prepared in all that we do. I want to set the expectation for the day. It would be great if there's like 3 things you could take away when you leave today. And I'm not going to tell you what those 3 things are. We want you to figure out what those 3 things are so that when you go back, you can say, oh, I got that. I'm going to take that home. That's a good thought. That's a good point. And it may even be a word. It may be a sentence. It may be a plan. But we want to make sure that we are putting that expectation together for you. And this is our California VOAD site. You're welcome to click that anytime throughout the day, and we can give you more information there. I'm not going to take a lot of the time anymore because I want to turn this off and get this conference started. Are you ready? All right. Oh, wow. Are you ready? Okay, that's a little better because, boy, we've got two people coming up that I just really am quite fond of. I have the first person I want to introduce to you. I have in my life what I call the Trinity of Valeries. So I have three Valeries that are, like work wives and my wife, and they're three of my dearest people that I dearly love. The first one I'd like to introduce to you with United Policyholders is Valerie Brown. And our second is from Marin County VOAD. She is the chair there, and her name is Adriana Rabkin. So no, I'm not. Yeah, come on. They'll get to meet the other Valeries later. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to these ladies and have a great conference.
Thank you all for coming. It's great to see you. I just want to draw your attention to a small piece of paper on your table that's got the Wi-Fi network. There is an intentional space in the password. It is make peace with a space in between, all lowercase. And you have two QR codes. One is for the Mentimeter that we're going to launch throughout the day, so you can keep pulling it up on your phone. And the other is for questions. If you have questions throughout the day, this other QR code will take you to a Google form. Ask them. We're going to be monitoring it throughout the day. We will ask your questions for you. You can also raise your hand at any point and we'll come around with microphones, but just to give you a little layout of the day. So thank you all for coming. Good morning. I am Adriana Rabkin, the director of Marin County VOAD. Marin County is a small little county that sits just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I'm also an executive committee member of NorCal VOAD.
I am Valerie Brown. I am the, don't know where we're going here. Okay, I'm going to ignore the slides for a sec. So Valerie Brown, I'm the Deputy Executive Director of United Policyholders. I am President of San Diego County VOAD. Remember, this is a California VOAD conference. Thank you, ma'am. And I'm also running a program manager's for the disaster case management program from the San Diego flooding in January 2024.
So what is a VOAD? I'm not putting $1 in for the acronym. I'm about to spell it. Voluntary, not volunteer, voluntary organizations active in disaster. Some of us go by COAD, Community Organizations Active in Disaster. We're all the same. We're all a collaboration of community-based organizations, also known as CBOs, that might include nonprofit and faith-based organizations, community centers, schools, libraries, healthcare clinics, and local and county government partners. That is typically what VOADs are. And we connect these organizations and build a collaborative network to support the community before and after a disaster. We're all part of a very well-established system. There's a national VOAD that's been around since 1970. There are state and territorial VOADs, and there are local county VOADs throughout California. There was a page with all of the active or close to active VOADs when you checked in. If you didn't pick it up, go grab it. It's got contact names for you, but there are a lot of us throughout the state, so make sure that you're connected if you are not already. We all have the same mission, which is to bring together organizations that are active in disaster to foster a more effective disaster response for those people who are impacted. VOADs help identify needs among partners by bringing everyone to the table so that we can share information, and we fill the gaps by coordinating the resources and services that all of our partners provide. We're involved in disaster preparedness, where we help our CBO partners get prepared before a disaster. We help them be prepared in order to respond. We're active during disaster response, where we coordinate the information and resources, and in the recovery process, which can last for years. And VOADs often lead their county's long-term recovery groups. So what does this really mean? My husband, after my doing this for 3 years, turned to me and said, "I've got it. You connect the left hand to the right hand." And I thought that was brilliant. So that has become my slide. We bring everyone together. We make sure that the left hand, the private CBO partners, are connected and are communicating with the right hand, the government agencies. That's what we do. We create this network. And it's the government partners, as you know, that are great at putting out the fires. They get people to safety, they're protecting lives and property, they're running incident command, but they need the local community and faith-based organizations who are on the ground and know their clients and communities. Neither can do it without the other. And it's the CBOs, these community-based organizations, that are trusted partners within all of your communities. They are often the only trusted partners among their communities. It's the CBO partners that you want to include at the table. These are your food banks, your centers for independent living, your faith organizations, your nonprofits who work with older adults, lower income residents, immigrants, non-English speakers, people with disabilities, unhoused individuals, and more. Those are your partners who belong at the table. And it's the CBOs who communicate with these groups and these communities every day. They're the ones who know them. And that's why, and it's these communities that listen to their CBO partners. And that's what makes this connection so special. So government partners need their CBOs to reach the most vulnerable residents. And it's this collaboration that's the basis of the VOAD and allows for an effective response in disasters. I showed this video at a VOAD meeting early, and people walked away and said, aha, I get it. So you're going to watch it. It's a 5-minute video, and it encapsulates the idea of a VOAD, how we work together during disasters, and why collaboration is so important.
Disasters happen in every community, and they come in all shapes and sizes, from a simple incident affecting one community to a major catastrophe affecting an entire region. A hurricane, for example, can cause a massive storm surge and powerful winds, which can lead to flooding, collapsed buildings, fire, loss of power, and other consequences. When these widespread impacts cascade and multiply, we have a catastrophe on our hands. The government will immediately initiate a response to address these challenges. And in the Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, the emergency managers will activate plans to understand the scope of the disaster, to ensure that help reaches those in trouble, and to coordinate police officers, firefighters, and medical teams to make communities safe and secure as soon as possible. There are also a number of non-governmental community and faith-based agencies and organizations that are active during a disaster and will leap into action and work with the government to provide emergency food, shelter, supplies, and more to those in need. The problem is that there is often little communication between different agencies and organizations serving the same community. And even though they can help one another, they may not be aware of each other's efforts. Without information about the operations of other organizations, they could potentially hurt their local recovery effort by duplicating resources, wasting funding and time, putting field staff in danger, and even directly hindering another organization's work. For example, let's say that we encounter a certain community that's been affected by a disaster, and there are two organizations that have decided to lend a hand and supply much-needed resources. Since they're not communicating with each other, imagine they are both providing home cleanup kits. But neither of them is providing food, which the community needs. With a quick exchange of information, one of the organizations could start providing meals. This way, two of the community's needs will be met. During a disaster, these connections are best made through communication networks coordinated with the local Office of Emergency Management. These networks bring together community organizations and agencies during a response. Since the emergency managers in the EOC have a big picture view of what is happening, they can interact and share information. An example of one of these communication networks is the local Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, or VOAD. VOAD is a network of non-governmental, community, and faith-based agencies and organizations that specialize in disaster services and convene on a regular basis for information exchange, even when there are no disasters. Although each agency or organization is in charge of its own operation, the members communicate with one another so they can share emergency information and coordinate emergency efforts to provide vital services to those in need. Oftentimes, VOAD has a representative that sits in the EOC with the emergency managers and can help provide critical information on unmet needs and available resources. Some are affiliated with national organizations and should link with them, as these larger agencies will be present during a disaster as well. It is critical to understand that these connections cannot be formed during the chaos that surrounds a catastrophe. We must connect before a disaster strikes and stay connected. Learn how you should connect with your local emergency management office now. From them, you can obtain accurate emergency information and details on how to volunteer. Visit their website and become familiar with the different programs and educational materials that are offered. Sign up for emergency alerts if available. As soon as disaster strikes, check with your local emergency management office to see if it's safe to go into the affected zones, and then determine how you can join the team and help your neighbors. You should also become familiar with the VOAD in your jurisdiction and introduce yourself and your organization or agency so that when disaster strikes, you can be an effective part of that response. To make our communities as safe and secure as possible, we need to bring together all of our resources, connecting our government partners and responders to our professional and voluntary non-governmental agencies active during a disaster, as well as to our neighborhood-based community groups. When we do that, we create an emergency team that has the best experience, the best equipment, and the best local knowledge to deal with any disaster of any shape or size.
So everybody got it, right? You can all go home. No, you cannot go home now. Must stay. We have acronyms, so put in the jar. All right, so I'm just going to start talking. The slide will come up in a minute. I just want to talk about, as Adriana said, California VOAD is part of the national VOAD. Each state has their own VOAD. And then because we are so large and have such large population masses, we actually are divided into two regions. We have NorCal, which is here, 48. There we go, 48 counties. Southern California has 10. And they basically even out, oh, there we go. And this is how we support our local VOADs, right? So we have events like this, we have our quarterly calls. When we have a disaster hit in the state, we'll convene a disaster call for technical assistance to support the VOADs. And it's just, a lot of it's just being a resource for that, enabling that collaboration and cooperation, and then also making sure people are not responding or deploying outside of their own because we have the system. So if you want to help and you're not getting the attention of a very busy VOAD in a county, reach out to your state VOAD representative, Kevin, and he might have that situational awareness to connect you to the right person, or it might be they don't have any needs. But this enables us to keep that playing field as nimble as possible so that we can lift that giant asteroid when it comes and throw it back. Okay, and I'm sorry, I don't have enough hands. And so these are just some of our California VOAD partners. And through the state VOAD, these local VOADs have connections to these, including FEMA, Cal OES, Red Cross, Catholic Charities, United Way, Mennonites, Team Rubicon, and many more. So for wearing my United Policyholders hat, we're a national nonprofit. We just happen to be based in California. We are also a member of quite a few of the local county VOADs here. And so the idea is that you can call on these national and international reservist providers by going through the system for the support and the resources you might need. So recent examples could include COTS from Red Cross, the KN95 mask from Cal OES, supplies coming in from Good 360 and other partners from across the U.S. And just so you know, there's more than 70 national organizations that play a role in the disaster cycle, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. And then, of course, you have your local organizations in your county that are very unique to you. And every time you have a disaster, the partners that pop up are going to be different because it might be a different community, might be a different need. In San Diego, we had our first flood in like 10 years. It was in an urban center, so we have very different partners now than we've ever had for recovery. Tony can attest to it. He's on my local long-term recovery group board.
Too far. Perfect. So what does a VOAD actually do? We don't provide any direct services, but we operate through what you may have heard of as the 4 C's: collaboration, coordination, cooperation, and communication. That's what VOADs do. And then they provide the 3 M's, which is money, materials, and muscle. We coordinate all of that, which is what all of the nonprofit partners provide, and that's what supports disaster response. VOADs provide the structure, the coordination, the facilitation, and the assurance that all these partners are brought together and will work together. VOADs collaborate with all partners who provide disaster wraparound services. So this could be your organizations that provide feeding, shelter, transportation, emergency financial assistance, disaster case management. Think about in your own communities, excuse me, who's providing what. The spiritual and emotional care component. Those are the partners that you want at the table. And it's through this coordination of all the partners where we identify gaps and unmet needs. We can find the overlooked communities. And as you saw in the video, you avoid duplication of services. This coordination also helps provide an equitable distribution of resources and ensures that everyone who's impacted for a disaster is cared for. It's the community partners that know how to reach people, how to speak with their communities. They know who need the printed flyers versus the email. They know who is getting information on their social media chat groups. They know what languages are spoken in each community. And as I expressed before, they are the trusted partners in all of these communities. They know which communities are food deserts and which ones are geographically isolated, right? So it's really important that all of these partners come together. And it's these CBO partners who work on a daily basis with the most socially vulnerable throughout the county.
Okay, so we're just going to highlight, as Adriana outlined, these 4 C's that we went through. So cooperation, the reality is it's a big puzzle. No one organization has all the answers, all the pieces. So we're trying to put together a puzzle that gets everybody home. Communication, as Adriana just said, we're looking at sharing that information about what you have as a resource. So we're looking for those beneficial channels of communication. You're doing a lot of listening in this space. You're sharing information about your resources, other partners. You're highlighting both challenges, needs, accomplishments, capabilities, and who's committed to what. So again, we don't have that duplication of services, but also just trying to create as robust a picture to help people and making sure that we're all part of that solution. And coordination, right? So it's through the VOAD seats at the EOC where we can help coordinate information and resources between government agencies and those partners. And so we're really focused on working together to provide the best possible service to those impacted by the disaster. If you don't have a seat at your EOC, nor do you want one, that's fine. So a lot of times you'll have a partner agency that has that can share that information. But it really does help to be part of that bigger coordination piece, so that you're getting information out in a timely manner. You're keeping your members from self-deploying and getting in the way of doing things, and you're putting resources where they need to be. In collaboration. VOADs build these relationships because we're familiar with the disaster service providers in our county. We might not be familiar with all the blue sky organizations, but we have those relationships and we have a framework to plug people in. And you're going to build these critical relationships over time, hopefully before a disaster, because as I believe it says on your bingo card, during the disaster, it's too late to be handing out business cards. You're going to find them about 9 months later, and it's a little too late to put them into your plan. But do it ahead of time. Those blue sky practices pieces are critical.
So what do we do in Blue Skies? VOADs work just like their partners through the entire disaster cycle, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. It's important that you start to build your VOAD or further your disaster response preparedness in non-disaster times, what's known as Blue Skies. And the best way to get people to the table initially is to think about it what's in it for them? Why do they want to show up? Why do they want to miss their work and come to your meeting? You're not paying them for the meeting, right? They're taking time from their busy day, from their case management or program services, whatever they provide, and you're asking them to come be a part of your VOAD. So what can you offer them? Maybe it's supplies, maybe it's disaster preparedness and practicing exercises, maybe it's helping them with an evacuation drill, but think about what's in it for them. That's how you get your partners to the table. VOADs need to meet regularly to build the relationships and the trust. And this is with government partners and CBOs. And as in the case in Marin County, and I'm sure many of you have experienced this, trust is built over years. It takes a long time to get everyone to the table. And it's essential that you understand both how your public and private partners think about things, because they think about things differently. They respond differently. They have different needs. And understanding what each one needs and what each one needs from the other is going to help build a stronger fabric of your VOAD. Share information with your partners and government agencies. Build a communication pathway and develop the practice of having CBOs share information that comes from government agencies. We share out information to our local communities. It can be about upcoming severe weather. It can be public health updates. But we have that practice in Marin County. They get information from the public information officer. They get information from the VOAD. They know it's trusted, and they send it out to their communities. We promote disaster preparedness and educational opportunities through meetings and best practices and preparations, presentations, helping them develop their emergency plans. And all of this helps to develop a coordinated disaster response. During disasters, gray skies. In Marin County, we hold conference calls to keep everyone updated. This is our opportunity to share critical information and make sure that government partners and CBOs, nonprofits know what's going on. We've been active in small incidents and large-scale disasters over the last 6 years. We held a conference call. We'll hold a conference call before a severe weather event. And when our entire county was without power for up to 6 days, we still managed to hold daily conference calls twice a day. People would drive to the pockets where they had reception. So it can be done. And through one of our recent conference calls, and I have somebody from our Office of Emergency Management here today, our OEM learned about a sewage failure in an unincorporated town that they wouldn't have learned about if it wasn't for the VOAD conference call, because those two communities weren't connected. You know, it was a volunteer with Tamales, an unincorporated town, that joined the call and shared the information. And that stuff is what's golden. That's what happens in your VOAD calls. That's where everybody gets to share information and understand things. That's where you coordinate the distribution of resources to get it out to vulnerable communities. I'm going to keep going. So quickly, tale of two disasters. We're going to walk you through one where collaboration wasn't great and another where collaboration was successful. This was an atmospheric river in Marin County. We have an unincorporated area that has one ingress-egress point. It's a lower income community with a large Black, Asian, and Hispanic population. A storm was coming, and we knew it was coming in the late afternoon when people would be traveling in and out of the area. And the only entry point, this, is subject to flooding. That's not something you can drive through. So actions that were taken were all in good faith, but they worked in their silos. Red Cross set up a shelter. Flood vehicles were staged near the entry point to help residents. And Department of Public Works set up road signs to direct people where they could park to then get the vehicles to drive in. None of it was coordinated. So the unsheltered individuals who were in an encampment that was flooded didn't know about the Red Cross shelter. Nobody showed up. No one told the residents about the flood vehicles or the parking arrangements. They would have only known had they driven past that point in the moment. And so people were left, stranded and unable to get in and out. It was short, it was not a big deal, but these were all very valuable lessons. And, what you learn is don't rush out and help without coordinating as part of the response. And had we all worked together, it would have been flawless. But now we know for the next one.
So, 2 minutes? Yes, that's what I thought. So coordinated response for San Diego County. So we obviously had a flood as well. And our VOAD activated simultaneously with the county when they stood up the EOC, and we were coordinating on the back end. But we were very plugged into what our jurisdictions were doing. So while it was coordinated and we were very complementary and we worked hand in hand and that piece was seamless, what was not seamless is this is community that was impacted that we had not worked with before. So we had community-based organizations and NGOs taking steps and making actions that didn't plug into the network. So they were in a vacuum feeling they were not getting services, and we felt we were patting ourselves on the back that we were providing good services, and there was a disconnect. So going back to that communication piece. But going back to the VOAD activation and disaster, knowing one of the challenges we have always is when large organizations from outside the area want to respond in a major disaster, they usually show up 48 hours, 72 hours later. They don't necessarily plug in. They might reach out to the state, they might reach out to a jurisdiction, but they're not coordinating with the VOAD. And if you're not invited, you don't need to show up, just to be blunt. In reaching out to Kevin at the state VOAD or Zach and Val at Cal OES, they're still going to come to the local VOAD. Don't shortcut us. Come straight to us because we know who we have on the ground and who we can use and who we can't. And then all of this feeds into standing up the long-term recovery group. We're going to talk about that more later, but I just want to call out that every action your VOAD takes during that response should funnel into setting yourselves up for success, whether you have a FEMA declared disaster or not. You need to set it up so that you have the contact information for those survivors. They're plugged into your network and you're able to communicate with people. And one last thing I know you wanted to talk about were the unwanted donations. So if you're not asked, don't take donations. So one thing to my closing thoughts here, apparently, we are all more effective and efficient in a disaster if we are coordinated. So with California being subject to floods, severe weather, a tornado if you're in LA, earthquakes, mudslides, wildfires, all of these things, the best way to support your community is to be connected with this larger disaster response network through your VOAD. This is where you're going to have access to that timely, critical, and accurate information about the disasters. It develops locations of shelters, TEPs, those other resources, and what those next steps are. It's where you're going to obtain needed resources or coordinate to be able to do this, right? And you have this larger network through the California VOAD and support through our various subcommittees. Adriana chairs our VOAD Startup Committee with Mike. I'm chairing our Long-Term Recovery Group Committee. Amy has our Disaster Case Management. We're all working to put together tools for you so that when you have a need, Marty is on my Long-Term Recovery Group Committee. When you have a need, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You're going to go to California VOAD. We're going to share with you the best practices we've collected from across the country, from locally, so that you have those tools to get yourself going so that you can serve everyone impacted by that disaster through this resilient system we're going to build.
The video had lots of acronyms for us. EOC, Emergency Operations Center, and Office of Emergency Services, OES, or in Marin County's case, OEM, Office of Emergency Management. And with that, we can launch any questions? Have any questions come in, or does anyone have any questions for us?
2 questions online. Will the slide decks be available, and will you be able to share the link to that video?
Yes and yes. Okay, well, keep your questions coming in. It's fine if you have questions later on about a particular panel. We will be monitoring and answering them. And as you heard mentioned earlier, if we don't have time to answer your questions now, we will follow up with you and do our best to answer them later on. This is the start of what some on the executive committee are already planning for next go around. So this is the start of many opportunities for us to come together and work together so that we're all coordinated in response.